Morning, folks. Today I would like to discuss quite frankly, the outrageous and outlandish rising energy costs here in the UK. I don't know if it's different in any other country that you are watching from, but here in the UK, the prices are pretty much doubling when it comes to gas and electric and all of your basic supplies that a human needs to pretty much function. And when questioned about this, when the Tory government were questioned about this and said, hey, this £350 grant you can give to a certain amount of people that may or may not fit the bill, it's just not gonna touch the sides. It's not gonna do anything. The average price is rising by about £700. People can't afford it. The average wage doesn't support that. There's not enough flexibility in people's budgets. And at best, you're saying that a certain amount of people can have £350. It's not going to touch the sides. They laughed. They laughed and they mocked. And this isn't about who you voted for. It's not about a certain party. It doesn't matter who was saying it. It's completely wrong. It's completely wrong. And there's a few things just want to talk about today about just the lunacy that is these conglomerates, these massive companies that are basically allowed to work inside of a country and reap the benefits of working inside of that country and that ecosystem, and actually mess and completely cripple the people that pay their bills effectively. So here's an example. British Gas had about 200 million profits this year, doubled from the previous, because everybody was working at home and they basically said people were heating their homes more because they were at home more often, and therefore they doubled their profits. Now, whether you believe that or not, or whether that's just a price hike in itself, the case doesn't really matter, or the reasoning doesn't really matter. The point is, they've just doubled their profits to 200 million. And they're out here saying that the only thing they can do is raise their prices by double, pretty much. What the government should be doing is they should be stepping in and say, look, we are the government and we work for the people, and that we keep the people in our country, in our land, we keep them safe, protected, we help them be fed, we help them function, and in return, those workers will go out and they will work, they will generate money for the country, which will help us grow and etc. The economy will grow. They're not doing that. They're basically saying to these huge companies, you come and work in our country and you do whatever you want. Oh, you want to make £200 million profits, you want to double your profits, and then you want to then double your prices. Hey, that's fine, carry on working. The government and regulatory boards should be stepping in and saying, look, it's quite simple. There comes a point where the people you're serving in my country cannot afford it. You can't just keep infinitely raising your price for what basically is a necessity. You can't get away without power, gas, water, all these essentials. You can't do it. This isn't a Apple Mac been doubled in price. This isn't a fancy glass table. This is basic human needs, and the prices are been just blown out of proportion, and people have frankly been extorted inside of their own country, because what else are you meant to do? Wrap up and sit with nothing on, but 500 layers and no gas on, and what are you meant to do? You have to pay it. They should be stepping in and say, look, when you've made this amount of profit and you are so almost a monopoly in effect, because there aren't many places you can go and get your power from, you're pretty much locked into whatever they say. They need to step in and go, okay, it's time for you to pass your profits on to the consumer. There is a level that the average person in our country can afford, and you've just crossed the line. So it's time to stop paying the CEOs. It's time to stop paying yourselves these huge, huge figures of money for what basically is you're doing the exact same job you were doing last year. You've just given yourselves an enormous pay rise, CEOs on hundreds of millions. And when I say hundreds of millions, I obviously mean across all of the different energy companies and all around the world in these big businesses. CEOs get crazy money, and they will never, ever pass the savings or the price hike onto the customer. They will never swallow that up. They will always, should I say, pass it on to the customer. It's wrong. And they're obviously getting away with it because they're allowed. And the reason they're allowed is the governments, they make all of their money off these huge companies, off these big contracts, off these deals like, hey, come and set your PPE company up. Oh, well, we've got loads of PPE already. Well, that can go to Italy. And we'll set up our own company for our mates and they can get the government contract. They love big business because they can make money off big business. When a regular person stands up and they say, hi, in our constituency, the average wage is 27,000 and the gas going up by £700, people just can't afford it. And let me tell you, £27,000 is a good wage. I don't know many people on more than that, frankly. I'm not in an extremely rich area. I'm not a rich person. And most people will just simply not be able to contend with such a massive price rise, and their life, their quality of life will literally be crushed and changed and altered because a bunch of energy companies want more profit and the government are happy to let that go on. They're happy to crush their workers and their morale and everything because, oh well, we might do business with them at some point or other, or we don't want to change the rules because in an imaginary world, if they said, hey, X large business that provides basic human necessities, you can't make this much profit off a human necessity, they won't put that cap in place because then businesses will say, well, I'll go to other countries and I'll make my money in other places. And they don't like that. I'm just sick and tired of the workers and the people of the country being completely, basically shafted, to be honest, whilst people run away with it. They get a little bit of rope and they run away with it, and I just don't think they understand what the average worker is. The average worker cannot swallow a £700 yearly rise. When asked again why at best is this £350 thing in place, it's not going to be enough, they laughed because in their mind they're thinking to themselves, £700, that's £2 a day. Who can't afford an extra £2 a day? A lot of people can't. A lot of people are literally out there surviving and they don't care. Because that's the message they've sent. We don't care. And I'll be honest with you, the longer and longer and the more and more this goes on, it's almost as if they want a riot, because there will be a point where people have had enough because they literally can't function. Again, this is not, hey, this luxury product that you occasionally purchase, your Spotify has doubled in price. No, you need basic necessities, and I just think it's sickening. I think it's absolutely sickening that they are running away with these hundreds of millions of profit, absolutely crippling the average person without a care in the world. And the rich will not feel it because, let's say, for example, you have a monthly wage, and out of that monthly wage, 85% of it is spent on bills, 10% on other necessities and bits and bobs or whatever it may be, food included in your bills, etc. You've got a small chunk, let's say 5% of your monthly wage, just to spend on maybe a takeaway, an evening out or something. Most people don't have that to even go on an evening out, you know. The only way to make a rich person feel that would be to make the price hike similar so they know the squeeze. But it's not even possible because let's take, for example, Boris Johnson or multimillionaire X person in the UK. Their power prices are going up the exact same as you and me. And the crazy thing is even if you cranked their prices up so much that they had 5% of their monthly wage remaining, their 5% is going to be a lot more than you and I have of our 5%. Let's take, for example, after 5%, they've got £1,000 left. Okay, well, I can survive on £1,000. If another person has 5% remaining and they've got £10 left, yeah, might be the same difference in percentages, feels a lot very different. And the government can't get a sense of what that feels like. They can't imagine scrimping and saving because they've never been there. And if they had been there and they could imagine it, they would never give the responses and the answers, and they wouldn't allow these companies to do these things. I'll give you another example just to end on, and I appreciate you listening to these talks. Tesco has a profit of about 2.2 billion. Tesco is a supermarket in the UK. And they've closed, they have these markets inside of the supermarket, like to sell fish, meats, deli products. And they're basically saying that because of COVID, they're the sort of loose products like fresh bread, fish, you go and ask for it. They don't want to purchase them because, well, frankly, they don't want people touching it during this. But the reality is, they just think they can basically get rid of them and they can fire, I think it was 300 to 500 shops worth of staff that run these markets. And it's like, those are people's jobs. You've got 2.2 billion. You could afford to keep those people employed and even keep running those markets at a loss if you wanted to, which they're not. They're making 2.2 billion profit. But they're not even thinking, well, we've got all these people employed around the country. Yes, these markets aren't making much profit. People aren't using them as much. We could use the storage space in our stores more efficiently. But really, it's just an excuse to get rid of staff, get rid of products, because they know, well, even without this, we're making 2.2 billion. And someone should step in and say, look, you can't just keep firing and chopping and changing prices and hiring in our country. The government should step in and say, look, I understand that maybe these aren't making a profit, but in our country and in our land that we protect and we help our people, they need these jobs. They may not make money for you. They may even make a loss, which I very much doubt they do. But you can't just go, oh, we're getting rid of 500 staff, 500 stores worth of staff, and the power prices are going up double, and we're going to do nothing about it. I really feel for people. I really feel for people because I live in an area that's pretty poor, and they won't survive with a £700 price hike. They won't, and there'll be stress. There'll be pain. This all gets passed down. This gets passed down to children and families when parents are worried about food and money and stress. Their quality of life goes down. They get stuck in this never-ending cycle. And I just think it's a real shame that, frankly, nobody seems to care just about the average person, the average Joe. As long as if their back pockets isn't been hurt and they can have their hundreds of millions, that's fine. But again, I'm slightly concerned and worried because the stress, money and stress, stress is the biggest killer. And all of a sudden you've got to find £700 extra plus minimum. You've got to maintain the same family, the same quality of life. Let's say that £700 was a few meals out. That £700 could be 6, 7, 8 family meals out, depending obviously on where you go or what you do. But you're going to have to cut that. That piece of joy is gone, and people are just working themselves to the bone just to get by for the essentials. Like, God forbid you are, I don't know, a single man or single woman, and you're working just the best job you can do. Not everybody, I think this is something people don't forget. People forget is not everyone is a super intelligent and bright person. Some people also have desires to work in certain industries that may not pay as well, but that's what their heart desires, and that's what they can do and manage with their own brain, because each person is an individual. And they might work in a slightly less well-paying sector, and they're just basically treated the exact same as somebody else, and they're expected to, on a basic job, get a house, pay for all the power bills, and you can't afford any sort of essential sort of piece of anything. I've got to knock my Netflix subscription off, my Spotify, and a lot of people just basically spending 70 plus years of their life working to pretty much own nothing. Everything's rented these days, loaned, cars loaned, loan it back, etc. Start a new contract, phone contract. Nobody's owning anything. The average person is absolutely struggling to have a house. And I'll give you a fact just to end. 1970, I think the average wage was £7 an hour. House price was about 50,000. Now, in 2022, I think it's about £280,000 for a house and £15 an hour. Most people aren't on £15 an hour, let me tell you that. And that is about a 6+ price hike on housing, and your wage has not gone up 6%. And I saw Boris Johnson and people saying, you basically shouldn't ask for a raise. I saw today. It's not about that. You shouldn't ask for a raise. And then I've seen another one the other day saying that you should ask for a raise. People don't work in sectors where you can just ask for a raise. Yes, if you're smart and you've got a fantastic job, you can go to your sector and say, look, I'm a unique person in this business, in this position. You need me. I provide a service. I need my wage to go up, or I'm moving to a rival company. If you're stacking a shelf, or you're just working a regular replaceable job like a receptionist or something, you can't go and demand that your wage doubles, or, hey, can you increase my wage so much that I will get an extra £700 a year. That could be something that the government could say, okay, it's time, there's a law, everyone has to increase their wage by £700 a year minimum to help with these costs. But no, that would kill small businesses, etc., etc., etc. And it's just a mess, and it's a shame. It's a shame we live in this culture where everyone watches these famous YouTubers and these streamers and these influencers and these product people. They're getting them to spend cash and chase a life they can't afford, and they're getting squeezed by everybody. And it's just a shame, man. And I just wanted to speak on it for 10 odd minutes and just say, I think it's a crying shame that your government can be proposed, you can have a question posed at them and say, look, this is ridiculous, people can't afford it, and they can laugh whilst companies are making £200 million profit, 2.2 billion. It's absolutely mental. So thanks very much for listening. I'm just on the laptop. I just picked it up because I just wanted to speak on this for a minute. Leave a comment, leave a like, subscribe, all that good stuff. In 2022, I'm doing these talking head videos where I have an opinion piece, reviews, etc. So thanks for sticking with me. Have a good one.